Here's hoping this is a good one. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. I've been waiting for the right color and condition to document one of these. Let's see if this is the one I've been looking for. It's the Gibson M3 Reissue in the awesome electric lime finish. And no, you heard me right. This is actually called electric lime. I had to go check my notes just to make sure I didn't make that up in my head. You might not have ever seen one of these before, let alone know that a reissue existed in the year 2013. However, I actually collect these Gibson M3 guitars, so let's learn a little bit about them. The Gibson M3 was their last attempt at a Super Strat guitar, and it came out at the ripe year of 1991. The history of the M3 would be so different if it was 1981 versus 91. But we had to go through things like the Victory, the Q/Alpha series, U2 and US1 models before we finally got to the best version, in my opinion. Some people are quick to point out that it kind of looks like a John Petrucci Majesty, but this actually came out first, and I've had both of them now. They're nothing the same, but vaguely similar shapes. But it's very futuristic. You've got this really cool swoop on the back. It's great for upper fret access. It's a very non-Gibson shape. You get these maple fretboards with the cool arrowhead inlays. Reverse Explorer style headstock. It's quite a statement piece. And despite only living for a few years, there are a boatload of iterations. So many that it's hard to find photos of all of them. So my goal is to track down all 11 and have them in my museum. So within the M3 family, you have the Standard, Deluxe, Stealth, and All-American models. But then there's also the M3H, featuring just the humbucker pickups in the Standard and Deluxe version. Then you step up to the M4S in the Standard and Deluxe, and then the one we're talking about today, the Reissue. Now there's also two Les Pauls within the M3 family, as the M3 Studio and the M3 Classic, because the M3 refers to the wiring of these. It's this nice little fancy diagram. You can pause and read it if you'd like. We don't have to cover it today because the reissues are a little bit simplified. But as you just saw, some of them are limited edition Carina. Some of them had the really cool walnut maple poplar sandwich bodies. Most of them had the maple fretboards, but some had ebony. Most will have the arrowhead inlays. Some just have dots. But generally speaking, you'll find the 496R 500T pickup set with the NSX in the middle. So now that we know about the original models, why do I keep putting in quotation marks reissue for this 2013 run? It's because it's not a reissue. It's more so building upon the legacy to create a version for the 2013 player. So what did they change here? We no longer have the 496R 500T. Despite that pickup set still being in production, they decided to change it up with Dirty Fingers Plus in the neck and bridge. And we'll have to see if there's any special markings on the backside of this single coil. It might still be an NSX for all I know. We no longer have the little mini toggle down here for the coil splitting. However, this one is a push-pull pot. You still have it, it's just you no longer have the little switchy switch. However, most prominently here, we're featuring a mahogany body for the very first time that mahogany has ever been used on an M3 body. Why they chose it? It just comes down to simplification. Gibson uses mahogany on pretty much everything. It's what they had in stock. They didn't want to go through the hassle of getting some poplar in just for a limited edition release. But you can still see through to the wood grain, so it's kind of like the Alien Tech green Dave Mustaine Flying V's that just came out not that long ago. But speaking of the finish, they decided to really rev these things up, make them 80s with some bright colors. So we've got Cosmic Cobalt, the Electric Lime, Vibrant Red, and Orange Glow. Fruits make me smile, and I like green guitars because they're a little bit weird, so yeah, that's why I've always wanted to document the green one. But another thing they changed up on the reissue is we finally have an official branded Floyd Rose. The other ones, they can come with many different trims, from Schaller ones all the way into the Steinbergers. And you'll also notice that this one does not have a pickguard. Now, it is important to note that some of the original ones also did not have it, but usually when people think Gibson M3, they think of that tiger striped pickguard. So almost everything's changed about the body, but the neck is about the same, with the maple fretboard, which is cool for Gibson territory, and the maple neck. And that's what Gibson was all about in the mid-2010s era. When they would reissue a Norland era model, some would say they did a half-degree attempt rather than the full degree. Others will say it was just meant to be a tribute and to build upon it. You've got things like the L6S reissue, as well as the 335S. Maybe check out the LP25, which is a tribute based on the original 2550 Les Paul, or even the all-wood Les Paul being a tribute to the great, awesome, the Les Paul. So first impressions here, I mean, the body feels about the same. I'm thinking our heel design might be slightly different. We'll have to compare that to a different M3 in my collection a little bit later on. It might just be that we have the solid color finish making it look a bit different. But even though I'm not usually a Floyd Rose super shredder guitar guy, I will never forget the first time I played an M3. I just picked it up because it was relatively cheap at that point in time. Weird, wacky Gibson model, and it was just the best thing I'd ever played. So that's why I'm passionate about this model just as much as Les Pauls and Explorers. Next up, we've got the case. They didn't reissue the brown one or anything like that. It's just your standard Tolex in the ebony finish kind of reptile skin going on. However, very interesting for this 2013 era to have these squared off latches like they're using yet today. But the interior, definitely Costa Rican made. The Costa Rican ones have this certain creaminess look to the interior of them, and usually the cases are prohibitively heavy. And hey, that's actually a pretty sizable lift tag on that. I've never seen that before. But where is it? Where's our tag? Darn, someone's ripped it out, but trust me, this was Costa Rican made. Hey, it's Trogly from the future here. I found it! Hiding up here. That's a new location. But yes, Costa Rica. And I suppose while we're in here, we can look at the case candy, owner's manual, the vibrato arm, we sweat the details, pre-pack checklist, non-filled out, all that good stuff with the case keys. Unfortunately, the seller did not do a good job at describing this in the slightest. We've got a lot more wear. We've got some weird discoloration going on there. It is quite common to get finish checking on these. However, I bought this one specifically because it wasn't looking that bad. That's a bit of a shame, as are these dents and dings along the headstock. So maybe this isn't the actual one from my collection, but it's here. Might as well document it. Let's go ahead and throw it on the workbench to take an individual look at its parts and specs. Bad news, this one actually has to go back to the seller, so out of respect for them, I'm not going to tear it apart because that does mess with the setup that he had it with. But essentially, it just came down to, it was nowhere near as described. The listing had said no major blemishes, but let's just say I found a lot, and that really ugly area up here by the cutaway didn't end up actually being dirt. It's a touch-up. Which I'll be honest, I was quite surprised. I thought for sure that was just dirt. I don't know what happened there, but it almost looks like somebody used a highlighter just to kind of match the green color. I mean, we've got a little bit of it right there. I'm wondering if this had a partial neck break at some point in time and it like chipped the finish right here. That's the main reason why I thought, you know what, probably better just wait for a different one. Because if it was just the finish checking and just like these small chips on the edge, the bigger ding does kind of bug me, but I probably would have just lived with it. But the other thing that caught my attention is the clear coat has just completely flaked off right here by the lock nut. Here's a peculiar thing. It looks like somebody might have tried to raise that saddle too far and it like impressed down on the finish, revealing the bare mahogany. It's either that or that could be a crack between those two routes. It's not all that uncommon. So kind of a bummer today. I am really let down. I was so excited to finally have one of these. But we can grab some basic measurements here. Like our bridge being 16.18 k ohms, then 15.62 for the neck position. Just that middle is 7.87. That's kind of hot for a single coil. That makes me think it might actually be a stacked single coil. But sadly, can't pull it apart to verify. Unless it shows us in the coil split. Nah, the splitter does not affect it, but it will the neck. Taking it down to 8 and 816 in the bridge. And for lots of fun, we can do our two in-between positions as well. And when we coil split it. Like so. So what's interesting here is the original M3 layout. That switch actually modified things to the point where, if I remember correctly, one was like direct bridge and then the neck position was just like completely a kill switch stutter effect, and it always confuses people. So this was definitely a simplified, more easier to understand approach. With a master volume and a master tone and your 5-way blade switch. And here's a quick look at our actual branded Floyd Rose. I do want to give Gibson a pat on the back for the maple that they used on this fretboard. It looks exactly like the 90s ones. Not all maple boards have this like certain look to them, but this one does. Although I will make the argument that the perloid material that they used in this era is not as nice as on the 90s. Like this one right here is the closest to what it used to look like, but it just doesn't have the movement to it anymore. It's quite a shame. But this is an unlacquered maple fretboard. You can kind of see there's a slight dirty haze to it. You can also see an area right here where the edge of the fretboard was kind of worn. But I was always curious about this. Is it a Gibson Mother of Pearl logo or just a decal? Because in photos it's hard to tell. decal. But unfortunately, it is a decal. Kind of a bummer. The seller was good about the return, though. No fighting, just a resolution, which is the best way to go. That's my least favorite part of my job, is when I have to say, hey, this isn't exactly what we thought it was. Because some people could just get mean about it. As far as our neck dimensions, it looks like the string's at about 0.1, so it'd be somewhere around 0.79 at the first fret. Then under the string now, about 0.92 by the 12th. Here's a look at that neck profile, 1st fret and 12th fret. You can see it definitely gets wider, but if anything, it feels and looks like it gets thinner. So just a little bit extra for your chording area. That's one of the things about the M3 series. They have ridiculously thin necks, and they are by far the lowest action Gibson guitar you can buy. I mean, look at that. I mean, you hardly even have to press the strings to get them down, but sometimes they can get too low. But I've always liked those arrow inlays because on the side, they just look like giant block markers. But we'll take a quick look at the back. I don't think you'd care if I popped the coffin off of it. Just to take a quick peek inside the mahogany there and all of the wiring that they've got going on here with our push-pull pot. And we'll take a good look at that heel right here. Now compare it to an original. And we can run up the back side of this neck. Nothing too crazy, but we've got our blacked out hardware. And they stamped our serial number in the same manner as the originals. Made in USA 2013. And then our traditional number, which if I remember correctly, I think it's 2014 when they start the year production sequence again. So we're just right before that. But all said and done, we're just a hair under 7.5 pounds at 7 pounds, 7.2 ounces. Let's go ahead and briefly get a short sound sample. Don't worry, I'll get another one a different day. I think I'll go after blue next. So there you go. Yeah, sorry that was kind of a bust of an episode, but I started filming it. I figured I should finish it. Was there a particular reason why I was only on 1 or 2 strings? Yeah, it's because I'm not going to go through the time to actually fully set this thing up if I'm just sending it back. We'll review a different one another day. Sadly, just didn't work out, and I'm quite sad about it, to be honest. We'll catch you guys tomorrow on the next one, and hopefully re-review this with a better demo one day. Take care.